Hey everyone! We weren't able to record a podcast this week for you guys. But this is an attempt almost 2 years ago by our team. Hope you enjoy it.
Good day and good health to everyone. I wish to all the viewers and our guests today. I'm Yip Jensen and your host today for the inaugural episode for the Team BG podcast. Welcome, I would like to say to our panel of guests, YB Rajiv, Adun for Bukit Gasing, and our special guest today, Shawn.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm Shawn.
Hi everyone. Thanks Shawn for joining us for the first ever episode.
First ever, what an honor.
First ever episode of the BG podcast.
What BG stands for though?
Bukit Gasing.
Oh, okay.
So,
my bad. Okay.
So this podcast actually was organised in coordination with Pejabat Adun Bukit Gasing and PEBS Bukit Gasing. So for those who don't really know what PEBS stands for, we are Penggerak Belia Selangor. So basically, we are appointed under the Selangor government to give motivation, to encourage our youth grassroots to make change, to motivate them and to build them into better leaders of tomorrow. This will be a season of 4 episodes, starting with issues that youth face. So nowadays, as we all know, youth is not being an easy job. As a youth,
Youth suddenly becomes a job.
It becomes a job. It's not easy to be a youth
Okay.
with all the issues, for example, housing, finding your first job, getting your first car. And now with the current economic climate and also maybe you could say political climate, youths are having a tough time fitting in. They are the Gen Z, the Gen Ys, they are in a divide. So they are in one foot in the traditional style, the older style, where they follow their parents' decisions, they follow what their parents say, and they are coming in conflict with a new and very radically different society, where with the rise of social media and a lot of other youth-based initiatives, youths are being bolder and they are given liberty to make more choices. And one of the choices they have to make soon, in fact, is to buy a first house. So buying a first house is a big step for anyone. And Shawn, you bought your first house at 22.
Yes.
Which is a great feat. And
I thought you were going to say my age straight away.
No. It's a great feat, and 22, many of us are still graduating, still studying or getting your first job, and buying a house seems very, very far away.
Yep.
And for YB Rajiv, you yourself bought your house relatively young, I would say.
No, not really. I bought my house when I was like 31.
21,
10 years ago.
Which is a good age, And I would say that we have 2 prime examples of how we can encourage youth nowadays to buy houses, and we can address some of the issues facing youth and what's stopping them from buying their first house.
Cool.
So let's start with the big picture. In a recent survey that was done by the architects of diversity, it was found that 59% of youth surveyed from ages 18 to 30, they were fearful that they could never own a house. Not few houses, a house, a property of their own. So I would like to start with YB Rajiv. What is your take on this statistic?
I think in the Klang Valley, that is very, very real. And even outside the Klang Valley, it is somewhat serious, but especially in big cities like Penang, Klang Valley, JB, this is a very real problem. A lot of private developers are only building for the upper middle class and the rich. They are not building for the lower price properties anymore. Now there are a number of government schemes up by federal government, by the state governments to fill in this gap. Maybe exposure isn't enough to this, and sometimes youths have to grapple with a decision to take a location that they don't find comfortable or desirable, or to get a property that they can actually afford. And so these are challenges that the young face, and in fact I myself faced 10 years ago when I had to make a decision
and you
to
made
buy.
you bought your own house, is it?
Yes.
Right, I see.
But the question then is, right, why must you buy?
Elaborate more on that.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
So to me, when I bought, when I was 22, 23, the only options of investment back then was share market. So I bought, then I need to go and take the remote control from my mom, go to TV Tiga, press the blue, yellow.
And you see the stocks and things like that.
So I need to
Wow.
call my seer, don't tell my mom, put in how much for this. That's how I bought stocks. Then from there, after stocks, there's only Forex. gold and
property, the real estate market.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that we have. But now, by mere clicks of the phone, I'm putting in money in Bitcoin, NFTs, right? For like, I want to buy stocks in, I want to buy Tesla, I want to buy Apple. Mere clicks. Suddenly, does property make sense, right? Then when you are at 25 or 28, like all my friends call me, hey Shawn, I want to buy property. That's a signal where he's getting married.
Getting married, then you're making a big life decision
Yeah,
where you need a roof over your head. For your
Correct.
own
So
family.
culturally, in Malaysia or Asian parenting, right, a house is still a determination, a sign that shows that you have enough financial power, enough financial capabilities to pay for my daughter.
I see. True.
So like that's why I always ask, right? Like as a father, let's say I have a daughter, right? My son-in-law have no house. Will I allow the marriage?
Exactly.
or not?
That is somehow like a cultural
I don't
thing.
think that's always the case. I think
Correct.
enough girls are buying house on their own.
Correct,
Enough
correct.
women are
So,
buying
but
houses
what's your
on their
take? Because currently, as we see, yes, buying a house is a decision that signals big change in
Yeah.
life, getting married, starting a family. But what do we do, or what do we address those that can't afford at their station in life, where they have this want to for those maybe the poorer families that they want to have they want to have a house, they want to have a family,
Yep.
but they are financially unable to.
Yep.
They cannot afford just simply can't afford a house. And what is your take on this matter? Like, what do we do to address this issue?
My take, there's two, right? One is a capitalist side, one is a welfare side, right? Capitalist means that profit makes the most sense, business makes the most sense. So when lands in prime areas are going to get scarce, and the more demand in a particular location, the price is only going to go higher. Then when people invest, like for me, if I were to buy a property, it wouldn't make sense for me to make a decision based on the loss of the property price, right? So by nature of economics, it will only go up in prime areas. Then when Mr. Rajiv said like developers are not building for them because the land plus construction costs plus development costs all are only going up.
I mean, that is simple economics,
Right, correct.
as a land value.
So there's no requirement that I need to serve the young. A lot of people come to me, hey, I graduate already, I cannot buy a house. You are not supposed to buy a house right after you graduate, right? A normal person will take like maybe 5 to 8 years.
5 to 8 years, true.
You buy a car lah, get a
But you
girlfriend.
bought your house at 22 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I worked since 14.
That's
So-
something that many listeners may not know.
Maybe that is the interesting thing, like,
Yeah.
I mean, just to say, working doesn't actually guarantee.
Yeah.
Even if you have a steady income, let's say about the minimum wage, 1,500, 2,000 plus, you still can't afford to buy a house at that.
But it's more than just salary, in my opinion. Because I got, maybe I finished the last point first. So the welfare part,
Okay.
it's where the government comes in. Now they forcefully ask developers to build affordable homes. And by doing so, what is the side effect? The open market products are also going up. Because no developers is going to swallow the loss by building
For a government.
by building
initiative,
affordable
I see.
homes where there's a ceiling to the price. Guess where is all the losses going to
But
go?
YB, as you have said, affordable housing is necessary. We do need affordable housing
Definitely.
projects.
All right.
So,
So,
what is the rationale on your side as a policymaker?
okay.
Why
So
it makes sense, lah?
buying a house is not the same as buying a lot of other things
Yes.
in your life, because at some point in life you will need accommodation.
Yep.
You can choose to rent, and these days many people are advocating rent, but bear in mind that if you pay rent or you pay installment, you still got to pay that monthly amount towards your accommodation.
Yep.
And a lot of Malaysians prefer to do the ownership rather than the rent, and I totally understand that, because that's security. It's forever there. Installment prices are typically stagnant throughout the 30 years or 35 years of your loan. Rent is going to keep going up every year. At the end of 35 years, your property price would have gone up.
Yep.
Typically, installments payments will be over. Rent will just keep going and going until you die.
Yep.
So there are real reasons why people want to own their home, but one way or the other, people are going to need to pay for accommodation. And if the free market is not serving the purpose of the young, then the government needs to step in. So some of
Definitely.
the intervention policies, like what Selangor has done,
Rumah Selangor.
which is not unique. In fact, all states in Malaysia have some level of affordable housing requirements where the developer has to build a certain percentage of affordable homes in his development. So in Selangor, it is not just the big, 1,000-acre developments, but even those who are building service apartments have to build affordable service apartment units within their development. So it goes within 20% to 50% of their development has to be affordable homes, depending on the location and the price of the development and a few other criteria. So with that policy, you bring into the market a certain number of affordable homes every year that young fresh graduates or those who have been just working 2-3 years have the opportunity to buy. The condition is very simple. It must be your first property, because we don't want people buying this to earn money from the rental.
There'll be a scheme.
Property investors who buy 10 properties should not buy this. This is for people for their first property and to help them to enter into this. And the second thing is it's aimed at the lower income, and this is not saying that absolutely B40, but also the M40 as well.
M40.
So in Selangor it's under 15,000 ringgit. So if you're earning more than 15,000 ringgit, then I don't think you want to buy this anyway. But you're deemed that you can enter the property market on your own, and you don't need access to the government schemes. So this is to give a foothold to people in this category.
At least they have a roof over heads. But I would like to go back to you, Shawn, because you did mention that you bought a property at 22, and then you subsequently started to invest more and more. And your end goal, believe it or not, was to have 25 properties at the end of the end of your journey in real estate. But from your perspective of being that property investor, what do you think about those that are willing to spend? For example, let's say you have obligations already, you have a family, you have a job, you don't have much leeway, but you still want to put some money into a property investment. So like for those youths who maybe want to go into real estate as a sort of side hustle, what do you think they should do, or what is your first step?
My first step is to determine your ambition first. Last time, again, going back to when I was younger, there was not much choice, honestly, right? And no one was teaching and sharing information about property. We were only paying money for courses to all the property gurus that we know online. That's why I didn't attend any, because I couldn't afford.
True.
Not because I don't go. I couldn't afford.
There was a barrier already there.
So what I would suggest youngsters is to first determine the ambition, because now with fingertips I get to set up a Shopify account, I get to do e-commerce, I get to do TikTok, I can be a video content creator, I can be an influencer, whatever you call it, right? There are so many other things that allows hustling to happen. Last time, there's no such thing at all.
There's no gig economy. There's nothing to make any side income apart from a job.
So like I have people in their 20s now showing me their income statement at 5 figures. I am going to graduate, Shawn. What do I do with my 100,000 savings? Right?
That's not a problem everyone would have.
But a lot of people still choose to look at, my salary is still 2,500 to 3,200. So ambitions is different. If you are still want to makan gaji, nothing wrong. But you will have peace in mind. So the consequences is you need to compete among the lower ones. For those who are willing to hustle, like I launched my own NFT project, right? The people who buy my NFTs average is 25. And they invited me to their properties. I'm like, and the amount of cash they're putting out, right, is 6 figures.
And they can afford it, wow.
So the story is, it's very easy and general to put up like, youngsters cannot afford. We have not seen the people who made their money in young. Not that because they are smarter, they took the chance. They started with 500 in crypto. Yes, of course, then there's a collapse or whatsoever, but
they take their chances, they take their risks.
They make informed decisions.
Correct.
Right? So, with that narration being said, if you are a normal guy like me last time, I was working, have a salary of 5,000 first. Right? 5,000, then you have your 6 months emergency fund. then you get yourself protected along with your families. So don't be a liability when you die, right? Have everything sorted out. Then only you start looking into property investment.
So there is this contrast where those that are willing to hustle, they get more, and those that are less willing to work, they get less returns.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of law, and it should be.
True.
Right.
I would like to go back to you, right, YB, because we have seen the two sides. For those that who can afford massive amounts of money, they have enough money to make that much property investment. They are able to afford. What do you think is the bigger issue? Because we can see there is definitely a divide. Property shouldn't be inaccessible, to everyone. So of course, yes, you do have enough money, you do work hard for your massive mansion, but what do you think? There should be some government measures, or maybe some on your side as a policy, to ensure that not just people who are taking all these risks, but what about the common people, those that are willing to, yes, they're hard workers, but maybe they don't have the capital, things like that. What is your idea for them to step up and to maybe get some taste of these better properties?
At some point, I think we should say that we are not licensed financial planners from the Securities Commission. So any financial advice that you get in this show is our personal opinion, and you should not construe it.
Okay.
And please do not come and summon us or arrest us.
Yes. Disclaimer.
And okay, I think when we talk a lot about property here, we can look into two big baskets. So you've got people looking to buy their home. And for people looking to buy their home, that's one set of government policies and one set of advice to deal with. And then we've got people who are looking to invest for a side hustle, to earn more money, and that's a different set of advice for them.
Yep.
So if you're looking at people who are looking for their first home or their only home, this is where many different decisions that you have to make at some point, like do you want to choose a location that is near your work or where you foresee yourself working for a long time, and maybe you have to compromise on other things to stay closer to the city center. You need to compromise on the size of your property, or are you willing to go further out for the same price? You can get a much bigger property. What kind of neighborhood do you want? Things like that apply to the first-time home buyers or the permanent home buyers, which makes up a large segment of society. So when we look at surveys that ask the youth, like, what are you worried about? Are you worried about home ownership? And
majority
the people
are.
that answer that, they are
Majority are worried.
People that I come across in my line of work as a state assemblyman, is that there are a lot of people who are worried about this. So that's something that the government has to step in and deal with. But if you're talking about personal advice towards those who are investing or those who are trying to make a quick buck, I don't think hustling through property is necessarily the easiest way for people. I agree with you. Like,
there are many better ways.
There's so many other ways that you can make quicker and easier, and I feel like maybe not on this show. We should get some disclaimers before we go into giving you advice.
But just to add on that, right? I've always
go ahead.
But I always tell people, like, property is not a money making tool. Property is a wealth diversification tool.
But you still make money from it, though.
If you think about money making, is I buy today 300,000, 30 years later it's 700,000. You call that 400%, a 400,000 profit. I don't call it a profit. I call it the current state of money.
The current value of that land.
So in other words, Milo Ice used to be 150 when I buy. Now it's already 380. Mamat, like per liter is like 450, right? So, but my property is only at that par. So if you want to diversify your wealth, you want to make sure that your money is hedged against inflation, you get dollar for dollar still, then you buy properties. Only when you have surplus. If your money, you are barely making ends meet with your installments, right? Do think again. Yeah, and when just now also you talk about, like, as a homeowner, as a capitalist, right? Like, the very distinct difference will be in Singapore. Like, more than 90% of housing are government. So the rules implemented on HDBs, and their HDBs are perfectly architecturally sound, well done, in other words, right? So the qualification to get houses is their only dream. Every
So
rakyat
that's
will-
their limit already.
yeah, their goal is every person will afford a
A
house.
house. But only
But for
one
capitalists,
house.
it's a nightmare. We need to pay like 30% stamp duty, pay just to own a property, right? You need to pay
By
up.
the way, the 30% stamp duty is Singapore, not Malaysia.
Not Malaysia.
So
Such
to, in other words, right, a 2 million Sing dollar property, I need to cough out at least 800,000 to own a property.
To own a property.
In Malaysia, I can own a property already. And to certain schemes also, like the properties that I'm buying, I get cashback by using different schemes and discounts and valuations and how to play the arbitrage game. The more properties I buy where the rental can break even with the installment, I'm still getting cash back.
So you definitely make a buck. You know.
So
It's
there's no risk.
no risk, and it's much easier to get
Yeah.
properties in Malaysia. But in the long term, Rajiv, I would just like to ask, in the long term, with all these, loopholes, all these subsidies, what is the long-term future of the sustainability of the Malaysian
Alright.
youth housing?
So in the long term, I look at it from the let's go back to the biggest picture.
Yeah. Alright.
We've got a population growth, and we've as a country gotten quite good in predicting population growth over the next 10, 20, 50 years. And with that population growth comes the family growth. So we also can predict the number of houses that we'll need in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Knowing how many houses need to be built in the next 5, 10, 20 years, we've got to ensure that government policy facilitates the constructions of these homes. Now, if the government policy makes it very difficult for developers to build homes, then we'll have the number of families growing faster than the pace of new homes, and this will cause prices to skyrocket. But if the number of new homes coming into the market is on par with government projections of population growth, this will keep price growth under check, because if you have too many houses, people just can't live in them, and the prices just can't go up in the law of
Then
supply and demand.
you'll be empty, and things like
Yeah,
that.
so I don't think we'll go to the other extreme where we build too many and we'll have lots of empty homes. That's probably not going to
Not
happen.
gonna
But what we need to ensure is that we continue building.
Yep.
And so that is something the government has to always keep in mind, is to ensure that there's sufficient land available. Now, the thing is, when we look at the most hottest market, and the market that I'm most familiar with, the Klang Valley, I'm sure Penang also has some challenges, but other than the Klang Valley and Penang, other than the Klang Valley and Penang, most of the other cities in the country have ample space to build more and more homes.
So
But the Klang Valley itself has more than enough space to build homes for a very long time to come. You have a lot of brownfield developments coming up. You have in PJ, in KL, a lot of industries moving out, just simply because it's not practical to have
Yep.
them in the city center anymore. So you will continuously have land being freed up for the next 2-3 decades to come. So government needs to ensure that these lands are being converted into productive housing, and as long as that happens, we will have supply of housing to meet the needs of people who need to stay in this housing. But as to how many houses one can own, as to strategies of how you can acquire 25 houses, this is a different kettle of
thing.
fish.
Yeah.
So the key here is for government is to have enough housing.
One is to have
Sufficient.
enough housing. The second thing is the government needs to ensure that everyone can access at least the first home.
At least the first home.
At least the first home.
And that was my point. For those who follow my work, I strongly advocate, I insist capitalists, right, to be responsible, to be accountable. So I encourage every capitalist again to play in our own playing field. But the Rumau, Selangor Coast and others makes perfect investment sense. Unfortunately, you talk about, right, a 15,000. There's two ways to think about it. I am buying the open market just because I'm not getting my first home, right? But I'm subsidizing a household income of 15,000 to buy their first home. I'm not even making 15,000 there.
So it's
Number one, right?
True.
The second one, they buy already. Nobody is enforcing to not rent it out. another problem, right? So I, as a husband and wife, I can buy 2 rumah Selangorku, which got one audience share with me, and they apologetically said sorry. Sorry, Shawn, I bought already and I rent out and it's making perfect money. Because of the installment is so low, but the market determines the rental.
And there are people willing to rent, you know, I mean, there's
Of course,
there's a
because
large
it's a-
amount of people.
So there needs, to me, I wish that they enforce a better filtration system to disallow or discourage capitalists to play around that playing field. Because I don't think it's that fair.
True. So to wrap up, just a short comment, just to wrap up, what do you think the youth of today, is it a sustainable future for them to own a house? Should they think of owning a house in now or in their 30s, in their 40s, or is it even something that is, you know, unattainable? What should the first idea of owning a property, what is the idea that should be in their mind?
Okay. Enforcement is needed. No doubt there are people who get around rules because those who want to make money will always try to make money, always try to go around loopholes, and government has to always chase and close these loopholes to achieve its objective. But if you're asking what should be the advice for the youth of today, whether you should get a house in your 20s or your 30s, I say it's up to you. When you're ready to buy a house, when you want to buy a house, then you should go into it. But if you look at what's happened in the last few years, we've made it easier. Government has made it easier because you've got affordable homes that didn't exist many years ago. When I bought my first home, there wasn't such options, and I didn't get to buy one of these below market price homes as a first time home buyer. I bought a subsale apartment. So that's one. Second is financing. Typically, you need to put on the 10% deposit. You need money for your stamp duty, your lawyer's fees and whatnot. So you need at least 15% of your purchase price in cash before you buy your first home. But now you have schemes from Chagamas, a government agency that helps you with that. So you actually, with zero down, you can buy your first home as long as it's under 300,000 ringgit. So if you are considering going into the market to buy a home rather than continue to pay rental, this is as good a time as it probably would ever get, because the policies are in place to help the first time home buyers. The policies are a bit trickier if you're an investor looking to buy your 6th property, and then you need to learn how to get around the 70% rule.
Yes.
How?
So on your take, what do you respond to that? You know, do you respond to the statement?
My take is, for this, if this individual, I would ask why he wants to invest in properties first. So to get the intent right. Is it for home or is it for investment? Or is it just a trophy property you want to show off with, right? So a lot of people like that. So when you get a home, then it then boils down to your affordability. So I have these 4 basic steps where I can just briefly share. The second step is to get your affordability check. How much loan can you get? Right? Before you go and shop for properties. Of course, we will all shop for 1 million plus properties, but when I can only afford 300,000, it's a pure waste of time, right? Then the third step, after you know your price range, look around 20 different properties. High-rise, landed, sub-sale, new, right? Old, new, in town,
So
old town.
what you're saying is keep your options open.
No,
and
it's to really test,
understand what your affordability is.
is to know, I call it the Kailan theory.
Okay.
Now, how much is spaghetti of Kailan? No clue, right? So what's the right rule to make sure that you're buying the right Kailan at the right market price? Is to go shop around. Auntie A from Cameron, Auntie B from Hong Kong, Auntie C, why so cheap one? Then you would be able to determine so you get the best value of your buck within the money that you can afford. Then the last one is to make the informed decision and take calculated risk. Right? Be accountable, because everyone, like, they write to me, Shawn, I'm buying this property, what do you think? If I say yes and they make money, it's their wisdom. But if I say yes and they buy and they lose money, it's your fault. No one wants to be accountable for their very own decisions, and that is pretty sad, especially for youngsters, because we are brought up in this situation.
True.
Yeah. So my advice is, if you get all of that sorted out, then everybody will need a home. But now, whether you like it or not, the price of houses are only going to go up, and it's going to be like New York and main cities. People will brag where they rent,
And as opposed to where they,
where they
buy a
own
house,
anymore,
where
because
they own a
owning
house.
has no correlation to the topic anymore. It's beyond
your
conversation,
affordability,
really.
beyond anybody's affordability.
Yeah, so like, wow, you stay, wow, PJ, you stay Bangsa, it's not owning really, it's renting really.
You rent in Bangsa.
Yeah,
Very
so-
nice place in Bangsa.
Yeah,
Nice.
so because of that, I believe that theory, and I'm doing my best in acquiring as much as possible. But if you are thinking about migrating, you don't know whether you will be reporting in Singapore whatsoever, then get an investment property first, where you don't need to be around where the tenant is paying you rent. So there will be a flexibility. So a hack I kind of found out is, if you want to really buy a home, but I worry that I'll get better offer in Thailand, to get a property where the monthly installment can be covered around 70-80% by the rent. Let's say the rent is the monthly installment is 2,000, but the rent around is 1,600. Go ahead, because you move in 5 years later, you want to move out. There's demand for your space.
So, and then there's also an easier way if you want to move out. There's not
so
much
the
liability.
exit strategy is established.
There is an exit strategy. So
Sorry.
I just want to ask, like, right, Rajiv, on your side, as a policymaker, definitely it's not as easy. Just for a lot of people, like, you can't assume everyone has that financial know-how, that affordability, or even that the capital to follow a good strategy, like you said. So what do you say to those that how can the government in a way support affordable real estate, but at the same time giving people who want to flip, who want to invest, have that same opportunity, but we keep it at a playing field that is
So if what you're asking is how can the government support people who want to flip properties, I don't think the government wants to go down that road.
Okay, maybe not
Neither do I
maybe
support
not that.
it.
Maybe okay. Let me rephrase my question.
Okay.
How can the government or how can a policymaker craft a policy that is beneficial to everyone, those that want to buy their first house, and to also keep the market sustainable, because we don't want to become something like a dead market where there is no FDI, there is no real estate movement, and your economy doesn't grow, frankly. So how can we keep it balanced? That's maybe the gist of my question.
I think the main policy when it comes to housing is not so much of worrying about dead market. The main worry now is whether we get overheated and properties get too expensive,
true.
and the fear of overbuilding and not having enough people to stay in these homes are not really the case.
Yep.
So the biggest thing for addressing that is to ensure the economy continues to grow. Because if the economy continues to grow, then no problem. People will still be in Malaysia, people will still stay in homes. If the economy goes to hell and everyone migrates out to Indonesia to work as a cleaner in Indonesia, that's when property prices will have a problem in Malaysia, but that is not likely to happen. So when you talk about as government's role as public policy, the biggest challenge today, and probably the biggest challenge for the foreseeable future, is to ensure a continuous availability of affordable homes for people to enter the market, and to ensure that financing always is available for this group. Because it's not enough for properties to be available at say 250,000 ringgit, but if no bank wants to lend to you, that's also a problem.
Yes.
And in fact, that was a problem a few years ago, where about half the people who buy